Hi, and thank you for joining me for another video. Friends, today I want to speak to you about Jewish modesty, authentic Jewish modesty. In other words, those of you who are familiar with my work know that I made a video a few years back on the topic of Jewish modesty. However, that video was on Jewish modesty as understood today by modern day Jewish standards. However, have you ever asked yourself, was it always this way, or did it change? And if it did change, did those who instituted such a change have the authority to do so? And friends, surprisingly, the answer is no. It was not always this way. And those who changed it had no authority to do so. So friends, there is a true standard of modesty that has actually been lost by the Jewish practitioner. And friends, the purpose of this video is to try to resurrect that initial standard. In other words, not only Jewish women, but even Jewish men who do not adhere to these standards are breaking binding Torah or rabbinic law. And with the exception of a few remaining Jewish communities in Yemen, these standards, which can easily be found in rabbinic literature by anyone, are just blatantly ignored. And friends, as seekers of truth, we have to give credit where credit is due. In other words, today there is actually a religion that has not abandoned the Torah and rabbinic Judaism's standards for modesty. And friends, that religion is Islam. Yes, friends, Islam, or the Islamic code for modesty, is virtually almost identical to the traditional Jewish one before it was changed by later rabbis who, again, had no authority to do it. And just in case you begin to think that by me stating that modern day rabbis have no authority to alter biblical, even Talmudic law, that this in some way means that I do not believe in rabbinical authority of the oral law. Well, friends, you should know that I do believe in the oral law and the rabbinical establishment, but only as the Torah and Halacha instructs us to do so. And that's only within the auspices of the Sanhedrin or the Beit Din HaGadol, and not the rabbis post their disbandment, who falsely assert their authority to make their rulings binding on all of Israel. So friends, what is that standard? Well, let's start off by covering modesty pertaining to women. And friends, it will probably shock you to know, but what is actually mistakenly referred to as the hijab in modern terms is actually the Jewish standard for a woman's head and neck covering. Yes, neck covering. According to Jewish law, a woman must cover her neck. Actually, Muslims adopted this custom from Jews, and even they'll admit it, to the point that even Jewish halacha has a word for what we call the hijab nowadays, and it's the radid. Actually, the radid is a separate piece of clothing apart from the woman's regular hair covering, which in Hebrew is called the mitbachat. Which, by the way, according to Jewish law, all women have to wear, whether they're married or not. In other words, according to Jewish law, even single women must cover their hair, which is, again, something that the later rabbis unjustly changed. As a matter of fact, as little as almost 70 years ago, this was the norm in Jewish communities of Europe and the Middle East, the notion of single women covering their hair. And the radid, what is known as a hijab today, in the U.S. was the norm for all Middle Eastern Jewish women. And again, not because they were emulating in any way their surroundings, but rather because this was and is Jewish law. And here are some images of the two distinct coverings. Now, different variations could be done. And friends, you must also remember that we should not be ashamed in doing the right thing, even though it may seem that we're emulating another movement. And this does not only apply to dress, but in any matter. We must always stand on the side of good. And there are still ways to make it look not so Islamic, if that's your preference. Something similar to a headscarf and a separate neck scarf, or perhaps even a turtleneck. And obviously, the rest of the standard rules also apply, like loose-fitting clothing and nothing that outlines the body, which would most likely rule out 99% of all pants, and obviously not anything too tight. And also, the legs must also not be exposed. Traditionally, Jewish women even wore pants under their cloak-style dresses known as a sinar, but this was just a custom, and the same could be accomplished with a long skirt. Now, the halacha also mentions that a woman should not expose their forearms. Now, this is in contrast to the way it's understood nowadays, which means that a woman just has to cover to the bottom of their elbow. This is, again, something that the rabbis, the modern-day rabbis, just made up. Now, I'm just describing to you the Torah or rabbinic standard of what modesty is. In other words, only because someone does not reach this standard does not mean that they're in any way immodest. In other words, words, you shouldn't force anyone to change their way of dressing when they have already accepted some level of religious modesty, unless they themselves, after learning the godly standard, choose to do so. Because if not, it really doesn't mean nothing if it doesn't come from the heart. Which is actually why we have decided to encourage the Dor Deah movement, to give everyone the opportunity to learn and practice Torah Judaism properly, and by doing so, incur collective blessings from the Almighty. And friends, these standards are not only for women, but also include similar laws for men. For example, I'm sure you probably didn't know that for men, long sleeves are preferable to short sleeves, always. That pious men should also wear pants and not shorts, and always have their head covered and should never wear transparent, tight, or dirty clothing. And friends, today I'm really just focusing on clothing, but within the laws of Tzniut also contain areas that speak about separating the sexes. And friends, this is really a no-brainer on how women and men, unless they're married or dating for the purpose of marriage, should really avoid idle talk. So friends, if you're a religious Muslim or any other belief system, and one of the things keeping you from adopting the true faith is the modern day Jewish dress, friends, wait no longer. And if you're a religious Jew who is fed up with the way many religious individuals dress within Judaism, you, my friend, can make a difference by breaking the mold and even making it easier for others around you to change also. And when you do change, please visit our website, dordeah.com, and share your story on our guest book. For more information on everything Jewish, please visit dordeah.com.